Hello, and welcome to the Road to Sold Show. I'm your host, Cheyenne Terraciano, and today we're going to be talking about the number one reason why your transaction could be falling apart on you. Your client has a picture in their mind of how the process of buying their house or selling their house is going to go. I can promise you that the vision of what they have is not filled with delays, dealing with weird repair requests, and it's definitely not unreliable and dishonest parties to the contract. Our clients plan for a pretty smooth process, and after all, that's why they hired us as an agent, right? The number one reason why your transaction is probably falling apart is due to the expectations not being met during the contract period. You may not be the reason your transaction is falling apart, but if you fail to prepare your buyers and sellers for the different hazards that they could encounter, you're definitely part of the problem. They're going to become dissatisfied with the process and dissatisfied with you and your service. They're going to start feeling frustration, anxiety, and anger, and that's on you. Our clients, they're intelligent, and they're capable of making their own decisions and with dealing with any complications that can come their way. You just have to arm them with the knowledge ahead of time so that they can prepare for it. Quite honestly, when a problem happens, if you've already prepared them for it, and if they knew it was going to be a possibility, instead of being upset and frustrated, they're going to be thankful for you. They're going to be thankful for your guidance. They're going to be thankful for your honesty, and they're going to be thankful that they already knew that this was a possibility coming their way. Instead of telling everyone they know after the transaction that it was an awful experience, they'd be singing your praises. Every time you close a transaction, it's an opportunity to earn a client for life. A client that's going to refer you to all of their friends and all of their family. Did you know that the number one way that the most successful agents earn their business is through this referral process? So if you mess up during this transaction, and if you don't prepare your clients with the right expectations, you're not just messing up this one deal. You're messing up your reputation and your ability to earn their trust and those future referrals. So let's just skip that hot mess. Let's talk about the three parts of a transaction that have the most pain points and how best to prepare our clients to handle them. Number one is the closing date. We call it the close of escrow or a COE. The majority of transactions where they can complete different inspections on the property. Usually that's going to consist of a pest inspection and a physical inspection of the home. During these different inspections, the inspector could call out something that's an adverse condition and that's going to have some sort of an impact on the desirability for the buyers to want to continue. This could trigger a request for repair, or this could open up some sort of a negotiation between the buyers and the sellers that you're going to have to navigate through prior to reaching a smooth close of escrow date. These conditions can delay a transaction because navigating a response that is acceptable to both the buyer and the seller could take some time. So how can you solve for these things? It comes down to setting excellent expectations for your buyers and sellers. Openly discuss with your clients that the close of escrow could be delayed unexpectedly, and have them analyze their current housing situation and see what some alternative options could be if the scheduled close of escrow doesn't go as planned. The last thing that we want to see is your buyers or sellers to be completely displaced and not have a home to go to at all. And trust me, it's happened before. It's also a great idea to have open communication with the cooperating agent inside the transaction. You want to understand the housing situation for both the buyer and the seller so we can make this process as smooth as possible for both parties. Most importantly, you want to be proactive in your transaction. Usually if we see a transaction that's closing after its scheduled close of escrow date, it's likely because the buyer's agent or the seller's agent wasn't being as proactive in the transaction as they should have been. If you're a buyer's agent, you want to make sure you get all of those inspections ordered quickly and efficiently at the very beginning of the transaction. When those inspections hit your desk and come back to you, you want to make sure that you review them with your buyer immediately and make special note of anything that popped up on those inspections that could be a concern to them. Make sure you're speaking with the lender and you're staying updated on the buyer's loan. Has the appraisal been ordered yet? Were there any repairs called out on the appraisal? Did it come in at value? Did anything unexpected pop up after it went through underwriting? You need to make sure that you're aware every step of the way of what's going on in the process. Once you hit the pivotal point in your transaction, which is when your investigation period is ending and your contingency period is ending, you should be 99.9% certain that you're going to be smooth sailing through your close of escrow date. Another issue that could pop up that could potentially cause a delay to your close of escrow date revolves around the seller's delivery of documents and disclosure of material facts within a timely manner. Contractually, the California Residential Purchase Agreement allows for the seller to have 7 days to deliver all of those items to the buyer. The buyer then in turn gets a total of 17 days to review all of the documents that the seller has provided. So what happens if the seller does not deliver the documents within that 7-day period of time? What happens if the seller actually doesn't deliver the documents until day 15, day 16, or day 17 after acceptance? The buyer has a minimum of 5 days to review those statutory disclosures that were delivered to the buyer. So if the seller fails to deliver those in a timely manner and they delay that process until later in the transaction, from the date and time when the buyer receives all of those full disclosures, they still get 5 more days. So sometimes you'll see a seller's agent try to get the buyer to remove contingencies for these items, and you as the buyer's agent at that point in time have the opportunity to say, no, I'm not going to remove those contingencies because you didn't do your job first. You didn't deliver me those documents that my buyer needed to review. Therefore, I still get 5 days. When it comes down to disclosures, you're also seeing how being a proactive agent inside of your transaction is a really big deal. You want to make sure that the seller is getting all of their documentation completed in a timely manner so it won't affect your ability to get the buyer to remove their contingencies when the buyer is supposed to. Sometimes the seller is aware of an issue with the home that they don't want to disclose to the buyer, and it's our job to remind them that good disclosure is what could be their greatest legal protection after the close of escrow, and that their lack of disclosure could be their greatest liability. You want to openly discuss with them that the disclosure of material facts is required in contractual obligations. The buyer has a right to know. The buyer has a right to review whatever that issue is in case they want to get a separate inspection for whatever that issue is. They're paying a lot of money for a new home and they deserve to know what they're buying. The last issue we're going to talk about today that could cause a problem inside of your transaction, lead to a delayed close of escrow date, or even a cancellation of contract is going to revolve around a request for repair. Inside the California Residential Purchase Agreement, a buyer has the right to ask the seller to make some repairs to the property, but the seller is under no obligation to agree to make any repairs to the property, nor does the seller have to even respond to a sort of request for repair. Buyer's agents should be counseling their clients that per the contract, real estate is sold in as-is condition. The listing agent should also be counseling their sellers and preparing them for a potential request for repair from the buyers so they aren't shocked and offended when they receive one. And sometimes we have to negotiate a request for repair in order to complete a transaction successfully. It could be the most favorable solution. If repairs are completed on the home, the seller will be responsible to provide invoices and paid receipts, a written statement of the repairs that were completed along with the dates of completion, and they must be provided to the buyer prior to the walkthrough for final verification of condition. I always think it's a great idea to consider a credit in lieu of repairs. The buyer's idea of what is an acceptable repair may not be the seller's idea of an acceptable repair. Remember, today we're discussing California real estate. The contracts and standard of practice will be different according to the location where you practice your profession. These classes are not intended as legal advice, so consult your broker or mentor in your office for specifics regarding contracts in your area.